People just either have a 2 or 3 person discussion on who was that person for you, what did they do, and why were they so instrumental in your life. Ready, go. Can I get some water? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so you know, whether you want to believe it or not, we just changed the neurochemistry in the room. You can actually change the neurochemistry. You have the ability to change your neurochemistry in any given moment in time. You have a choice. Now, can we walk around thinking like that and feeling like that and doing that all day long? No, but we can do it more than we're doing. Right? A couple of sayings. I want to give you I'm going to say a saying, and I want you. This is the part again, participation, right? I want you to blurt out a number on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, I want you to blurt out on a 1 to 10. Everyone gets to yell out a number. The number represents this saying's truth about you and your life. I'm going to say the saying, and you have to say 10 is like, that's 100% true of me, and 0, that's not true of me at all. Okay, you ready? I'm harder on myself than I am on other people. Okay. You get the problem with this? One of the most detrimental things of people hold that out as a badge of honor. I'm harder on myself than other people. And then you sit there and wonder why we have this self-frickin' induced cortisol. That is not a badge of honor. It's to be examined. And by the way, if you think, no, I've done that my whole life and I'm harder on myself than on other people, first of all, don't ever mistake the fact that you might not be as easy on other people when you're being that hard on yourself as you think. Right? Secondly, the difficulty, like we wake up and we're like, I gotta do this. And sometimes when we're laying in bed, I mean, how many, I won't make you show your hands because that's sort of embarrassing, but you're laying in bed and a lot of people get up and they start telling themselves what they have to do today. I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this. That is starting your day with cortisol. That is starting your day with cortisol. And I could ask you, I mean, and by the way, this is free. You don't have to pay anything. I'm giving you something for free. When you catch yourself doing that, I got to do this and I got to do that. I got to get to the gym. That's it. I've got to work out today. First of all, if you keep gotta-ing yourself, ask yourself how well that's working. Because if it were working, we wouldn't be doing that. But that's the same sort of accountability, even self-accountability. When we're punishing ourselves, we're increasing cortisol and actually decreasing the capacity for ourselves to take action. Isn't that amazing? That's why I have a coach, and my coach sometimes, he told me recently, would you please take it easy on my friend Steve? I was like, wow. Like, now that doesn't mean we become complacent. It doesn't mean that you don't have some level of understanding. I get it, but this self-beating isn't doing anything for anybody. We need to understand more. Okay. Michelle. When I was in a class, actually at UCLA, I was in this class, and this professor drew these two stick figures on the board. And these stick figures represent a process that even Kevin mentioned called metacognition. I'm going to, within just a few minutes, teach you the skill of metacognition. I do not think it's that complex a topic, but let's not confuse complexity with ease. It's neither complex nor easy, okay? But if you could leave here, by the way, you have the ability to practice this whenever you want. But it is the practice of metacognition that can put you in more of a flow state. It can help you understand. It can help you understand, from an emotional intelligence perspective where you are. It can decrease cortisol, it can do a whole lot of stuff. These two stick figures are technically both you. So I want you to think of this as your ability to see you seeing you. Because metacognition, I know it's a fancy, sounds all fancy. Maybe it'll sound cool at a cocktail party or whatever. It's not that fancy. Meta is just a Greek prefix that primarily means, it's actually referential to the next thing. So people in IT, are there any IT people in the room left? So IT people, no. IT people study the metadata. The metadata is the data about the data, okay? Cognition is just a fancy word for thinking. So metacognition is thinking about thinking. Can we learn to think about how we're thinking? Learn to think about how you're thinking. So I can keep defining it and give you other things, but the best thing to do is give you an example of it. And then I'm going to give you an exercise and maybe we get to practice it. So this happened to me. This was a few years ago now because I was learning metacognition and I was being taught this. And it was one day, it was a summer day, that's all I remember. I live in Oregon. I live in the Portland area. And I was getting onto this freeway by my house. It was some afternoon, I didn't even know where I was going. I was getting on this freeway and a guy in a truck, this flatbed truck, was speeding up and slowing down and not letting me in on purpose. I don't know I know in California everyone's really nice when they drive. So, but this guy, and you could tell he was doing it. And within seconds, I just remember going like, I just got so mad. And I'm catching that guy. This is my big plan. I'm going to catch that guy. And I'm going to throw him a look. This was my big plan. I haven't seen what he looks like yet. I might throw him other things. We'll see when I get there. But because I was learning metacognition, because I was in this season of, I had a moment, right? And I paused because I recognized that I was that angry. And I simply asked myself a question. And it might not today seem like a lot to you all, but I'm telling you this question has changed the course of my life. It changed my life. My wife, if she were sitting here, she'd go, it changed his life. And the question was this. It's pretty simple. Ready? Steve, why are you so angry? Now, because of the work that I do, I've written articles on this. We've published a couple of papers. I get to talk and do about it a lot. I can ask that question with this tone. So let me ask you, does my anger change the guy? Okay. Does my anger change the situation at all? Do you think my anger is even good for me? Okay, no. So quickly, look at what I do for a living. And I'm mad at some guy. Like I teach and train in the field of emotional intelligence. So I could quickly go Steve, come on, why are you so angry? You know what? That question should be followed with a comma, you idiot. You hear the judgment in that? That's not metacognition. Metacognition is, Steve, why are you so angry? Curious, interested, non-judgmental understanding of my thinking. Why am I like that? Now, I wrote a book about the lizard brain called Still the Lizard. I probably talked about that a couple of years ago, but in that book, when I ask, Steve, why are you so angry? My lizard brain already had an answer. Do you know what the answer for again, I asked and I found an answer. Because that guy's an asshole. Right? Now that could categorically be true. And still, I get to choose. So I started this process of understanding how I'm thinking. By the way, thinking is just a big word. It could be any mental activity. In this case, it was learning and examining how I'm feeling. This gave rise to the entire field of emotional intelligence. And I know many of you have heard of emotional intelligence as a field. And the reason you've heard of it is because you will take more actions in your life based on how those actions make you feel, and not necessarily how you reason. You know, when Kevin, I got to be honest with you, Kevin, when he was up here sharing, and, you know, I get to coach Kevin, and so I know him pretty well, and I watch his videos, pretty smart guy. I mean, I still can't understand how he retains all that information and be able to regurgitate it like that. But all this new stuff, and we're growing, I could feel myself get a little anxious when he was talking. It's like, I got a little anxious. Like, just listening to him, I was like, am I going to be able to keep up? And what if I can't? And I felt this anxiety grow. But here's the deal. I also noticed it. Oh, wow, look at that anxiety. Because when you can notice it, I'll give you a couple cool neuroscientific sayings. One is, if you can name it, you can tame it. If you can name it, you can tame it. And then the other, this is Carl Jung. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, had this saying. He said, what we resist persists. Okay? So, forgive me for my dumb golf analogies. If any golfers, I know I have baseball players, any golfers, some people think it's really dumb. If you're playing golf and you're about to hit a golf ball, and between you and where you want to hit it is a lake, and you stand up over the ball and your brain starts to go, don't hit it in the lake, don't hit it in the lake, don't hit it in the lake. Where's the ball going? Yeah. See, we get it. You guys are all a bunch of neuroscientists, right? So if I feel anxiety, or if I feel frustration or anger, and you would think, Michelle, I'd go like, you know what? Let's not feel that. That's not the trick, because that's don't hit it in the lake. We do a whole course. Right? If, you know, that's me selling. I wish Kevin were here. I'd come back. I'll do a whole course. Give me a full day, and I will help you through a instructional course on how to release cortisol, because it just takes time to work through it with people. But one of the ways is to not try to eradicate it. If you're feeling stress and anxiety, if you leave this today and you're like, that guy said, stop feeling stress and anxiety. No, he didn't. Because if you try to stop feeling stress and anxiety, it will cling to you like stink on a monkey. Get it? That's don't hit it in the lake, don't hit it in the lake. We're not trying to eradicate stress and anxiety. We're trying to understand it. We're trying to speak to it differently. We're trying to see what it actually is and make sense of it. You do that, it might not seem like it'll change your life. Because maybe next year I can come back, and when I ask who's more stressed and whatever, only 3 of you, not almost all of you. And by the way, go help others with this. This is a pandemic. 300% increase in some of these diseases, and we're still walking around with everything we know in stress-inducing activities, and not able to understand and process and practice metacognition. And like Kevin said, maybe this doesn't make you $100,000 more next year. Maybe you'll just find more peace. Maybe you'll be a better mom or a dad. Maybe you'll be better relationally. And let me ask you, if you were those things, would that not have an impact on your business? We're in the relational game, folks. I don't know, maybe some of you are sitting here right now going, I thought we were going to talk about TPO and mortgage. We are. That is what we're talking about, because this is the only thing left after AI is for us to get better at these things. You get better at this, you get better at people. And the coolest part about all of this is you can. And believe it or not, only, well, I got to think about it, but only 26, 27 years ago, science didn't think you could. It was, you can go back to the journals in the late 90s, and it was largely thought that the adult human brain was fixed. That you would wake up and go, I am who I am. And as it turns out, it's not true. That's what the whole field of neuroplasticity is all about. Actually, your brain changes until the day you're dead. You have the ability to take even this work and go out, practice metacognition, and literally rewire how you think, and it doesn't matter how old you are. But you can actually disprove all the neuroscience through your own will. I know some people in their 20s who might as well be fixed and dead because they have such a fixed mindset that they don't think they can grow. And I'm working with some people in their 60s and 70s. I've got this one client, he's in his mid-70s. He's coming in, he's practicing metacognition. You'd think he's 30. You really want to stay young, practice metacognition because you get to know who you are and there's newness to it. But there's too many people, unfortunately, Michelle, walking around going, I'm just a type A. You're not just that. And part of that is what you're talking to yourself and what you're saying, and we can change those things. We can rewire those things. Now, are there some genetics? Yeah, I've been trying to meditate my way taller for many years, and it hasn't worked out one iota, right? There's genetic code to our hair and our stuff, even to some of our responses and brain wirings. But some people that come to me and go, I'm just a worrier. Okay, well, let me tell you something. There's no genetic disposition for worry and stress and anxiety. None. That's not either genetics or epigenetics, the expression of the gene code. There's no gene code for, oh, there's a stressed person. So you know what that means? That's learned behavior. I know, but my mom and my dad, I know they taught you very well. It's learned behavior, and that's good news. Because if it was not learned behavior, then what the hell am I doing? We can learn to be less stressed, yes.
Similar with negativity?
100%.
Your mom was that, your dad was that.
100%. We learned it. We learned it.
How do you unlearn it?
Metacognition. Practice. Have the willingness to look at some of the ways that you're thinking and feeling and examine it and go, wow, look at that. I wonder what that's about. Where did that come from? And notice it. Just start by noticing it. Stop trying to eradicate it. Because when we try to eradicate it, it doesn't go anywhere. Right? If I go from that guy's an idiot to I'm an idiot for thinking that everyone's an idiot and no one's learning anything. Cortisol stays high and no one's learning anything. I started messing around with, why am I so angry? That's so interesting. Is it I'm just a guy and I want to be in front of people? Is it social justice? Somehow people shouldn't act like that. And so I started to explore reasons for my anger beyond just that guy's an idiot. Right? And I've shared this and shared this and shared this with people, and sometimes it's not always met with high critical acclaim. But here's some crazy truth. You ready? I believe, based on what I've seen in neuroscience and maybe how I've lived in the world, that, again, whether you're a spiritual person and want to say God or you're not a spiritual person and want to say nature, it doesn't really matter to me. I believe that you have the ability to choose how you feel. I think you were given the neurochemistry and biology to choose our emotions. Do you all agree with that? Yes? Okay, so this is the part that becomes when I'm not all of a sudden become public enemy number one. What that means, and is stress or anxiety or worry as a mindset, is that not an emotion? Doesn't stress feel emotional to you? Okay, so you know what I just implied by asking you that and you all going, yeah, I can. You know what it means? It means you're choosing it. And you can see why that makes some people upset. I don't think this guy understands the business anymore. It's like this, and people are like that, and this and that. I do, and you still get to choose. And so the reason that sounds indicting and possibly cortisol-inducing, I'll come down and I'll be nice to you, but let me be mean for just 1 second. You know how many people are actually choosing stress and don't know that? It's a frickin' choice. Some of us have been doing it for so long, we don't know the difference. And we think we're stressed because of the environment. You know how many people in the mortgage industry are sitting around going, you want me to be less stressed? Get rates back into the low 3s and 4s and whatever, and I'll watch my stress dissipate. You know what that means? That means you're waiting on something external of you to happen to choose how you live your life. What an element of freedom to wake up in one day and go, actually, I get to choose this. But here's the deal. Cortisol is a hormone. And much like dopamine, and much like other hormones that people get addicted to, I am absolutely becoming convinced that stress is not only a choice, but an addiction. Some of us don't even know how to live life without it. To even imply that we could reduce stress might stress some people out going, I don't know, I've been living like that for so long. How do I do it without it? But we can. And when you begin to, let me tell you something, life. It's unbelievable. And our capacity to get back into the zone and do things and serve people and help people. Yes, grow your business too. If PRMG as an organization could get this, you will crush it. And even if you don't, I'm not going to get much hate mail going. All you got was more peace and better relationships. Yeah.
I was going to say, where does fear play into a factor?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just know this. It does. It does. Fear plays into it. Fear, anxiety, fret, concern, worry, any of those, again, they have clinical differences. I had one person, I was speaking, I don't know where I was, but this woman kind of got upset. And she's like, you got to quit saying anxiety. I'm not anxious. I'm just worried a lot. Okay, whatever, right? Cortisol inducing, right? So fear plays into it in a huge, huge, huge way. Here's one for you. Worry and anxiety, we'll just take those. Oftentimes fear is primarily a future projection of a negative outcome. That's what it is. We are projecting forward a negative outcome. Now, there's a key reason for the brain to do that, right? The brain is a prediction machine, and it would stand to reason, given that we know the brain dedicates about 4 times as much energy detecting threats than it does seeking reward. Okay? So it's a prediction machine. So fear is, what if that happens? And what if that happens? Okay? How often are we doing that in business? You know, Kevin not telling you to make 50 calls a day. The only reason people don't make 50 calls a day is like, what if I did that and this happened? And it's human to be like that because it's a protection. But if we can practice metacognition, you could find yourself doing it. I woke up this morning, I went for a walk. I was down a little further south in Corona, and I went for a walk, and I was sitting there, and I was like, I knew I was going to present to you all today. I've been doing this for years and years. And I had about 3 minutes of, what if they don't like me? Right? But I recognized that. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Now, had I not recognized it, that feeling will take you. And it will actually own you more than you own it. So fear is a future projection primarily of a negative outcome. And we already possess the ability to project forward, which is why I had this client. She was super anxious and worried. And we're not counselors or anything. I'm a coach. But she was super worried about all this stuff. And I asked my coach, Lyndon Crow, who, by the way, Lyndon lives in San Clemente. I asked him if he would work with her for a couple sessions because this man's forgotten more about emotional intelligence than I'll ever know. And I asked Lyndon if he would work with her, and they did. They had 2 or 3 sessions, and she came back and she was like, this guy changed my life. And I was like, I couldn't wait. I had my notes out. What did Lyndon say, this nugget that changed his life? She goes, he finally said to me, hey, as long as you're making shit up, make up good shit. But she processed that like, wait a minute. As long as you're projecting forward negatively, and by the way, if worry and anxiety is a future projection of a negative outcome, what if we projected forward positively? Now, I'm not secret guy. I'm not rah-rah guy. I'm science guy. I'm not trying to go like, hey, let's all just think positive and checks will start coming in the mail. No, they won't. Maybe, I don't know. That's not my work. The difference between processing something and projecting forward negatively, if you could think to project forward positively, here's the question. Which one puts you in a better present state? That's all we're trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do with athletics. You want to sit around and worry about, are rates going to come down? Is Trump going to say this thing? Is the Fed chairman going to do this? Are inventory going to do? You can sit around and worry about all that stuff. It's a future projection of a negative outcome. One, you'll finally figure out that you have zero control over that, so it's really weird to dedicate any energy to which we have zero control, right? Which, by the way, people do. If you ask yourself what you're really worried about, pause and go, what part of what I'm worried about is actually outside of my control? And you're going about 90%, right? And learning what it means to dedicate energy back to that which we can control, which was the whole philosophy of Stoicism. Learning to practice what we can control. I can make calls, I can reach out, I can meet with people, I can educate people, I can bring in my stuff. There's things I can do. Dedicate energy to that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you isolated alcohol for sugar, but I have a lot of friends, and unfortunately my kids,
Yeah.
they have to have dessert, and then they go to bed. Is that
Yeah.
the same sugar
Yeah.
thing you're talking about?
Yeah.
Sugar, sugar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Bad.
Bad.
Bad. Have a piece of cake at 6 or 6:30 or 7, not at 10. Not at 10. Yeah. Yeah, the research on technology, because everyone keeps saying that, I don't doubt. Like, my wife and I watch some shows, and then I wonder why I can't sleep at night. Like, I just think the content of some of the stuff is going to preclude at least me from sleeping. That's not the research. The research on tech is, and you all probably know this, almost any machine, any TV, any laptop, certainly our phones and Androids or whatever it is, all of them have a night shift. You all know about your night shift on your phone or pad or whatever. If you don't, look it up. It's on there. And if you don't do this, go do it right away. I do it. I mean, put it. And by the way, you can set night shift. All these devices go, well, what time to what time? Put it from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And at 6 p.m., you'll notice that your phone or whatever tech whatever you're looking at, it will turn kind of an ugly yellowish color, because what's happening is it's knocking out the blue spectrum of light. Because the blue spectrum of light stimulates the brain and keeps us awake. And if you don't want to do that, then go buy a $15 pair of blue blocker sunglasses. Seriously, people do that because they don't want to, or whatever. Now they sell glasses sometimes that are knocking out the blue. But so reason for a second. Why do they even have that feature? Somebody must have said somewhere this isn't good for people because it's keeping us stimulated and awake. But we're so addicted to these things that some people are just watching stuff right when they go to sleep, and that blue spectrum of light is it's not helpful to them staying and going to sleep. I do. I haven't seen Aura or any of others really get that good at exactly measuring they can do it a little bit. They'll probably get better and better and better at theta wave and alpha wave sleep. That's when the glymphatic system opens. The reason I like the Aura Ring is because at least you're measuring something. It's at least a reminder like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get better sleep, which might be good for the mindset thing anyway. What else? Deep sleep.
I really need this because the Zoom people can't hear.
Yeah. Restorative sleep. Deep sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Deep sleep. So there are people that can get knocked out and not get restorative sleep. By the way, I know none of you drink too much. If you ever do drink too much, have you ever had you drank a lot and you woke up the next morning? Again, you know what a hangover feels like? I know, some of you do, maybe. Okay. Have you ever not drunk anything and woken up and just got a lousy night of sleep? Maybe the kids, maybe you weren't feeling good and you wake up and it's like the same feeling. You ever felt almost hungover from a crappy night of sleep? People think that hangovers are residual alcohol. It's all about a lack of restorative sleep. Because without any alcohol, if you get a crappy night's sleep, you'll still wake up like, it almost feels the exact same. That's a lack of restorative sleep. Yeah.
Hold on.
Are dreams indicative of good sleep? In a lot of ways they are. In a lot of ways they are, because sleep goes in cycles. I had a period of my life where I got into sleep medicine, and I was really researching it, but I'm not an expert at it. But in a lot of ways, you only get to REM sleep, which is where dreams happen in that restorative thing. It'd be hard to get to the dream phase without going through the restorative phase. You go through the restorative sleep first, then get to the dream phase. And by the way, that happens multiple times a night. It's not just one thing. We do this throughout the night. And not that you asked, but we have this center part of our brain called the corpus callosum that separates the right hemisphere from the left hemisphere. When we get into dream states, the brain effectively crosses over. The left goes to the right and the right goes to the left. And it's just super weird. That's why you can have a dream about your mom and a dinosaur and loving ice cream. And you're like, what is happening? Because the brain, like it crosses over and gives you, have you ever had a dream where it's like weird periods of time, someone that you know now that you knew in second grade and it wasn't even them and it's really weird? That's the crossing over. But even dream specialists are like, why does that happen? The best they can guess is that when we used to, if you still have a PC, maybe this still happens. Remember defragging a computer? You're taking those fragments of the X's and O's and trying to get them back to maybe where they should be. That's what the brain's doing a little bit. It's kind of defragging, but it crosses over and it does some really crazy things at night. So yeah, if you dream a lot, probably pretty good. You're getting good rest. What else? Really?
You did good.
No, we're not done. I got exercises for you. But here's the deal. Oh, man. So here's something that creates cortisol. Ready for this? Sitting. On average, depends on how people metabolize, but on average, 28 minutes of sitting and the brain starts to release cortisol. Okay, so how ironic. Come sit for 2.5 hours and listen to something that's really horrible for your, about the brain and mindset. So, let's take a break for 2 or 3 minutes. If you need to go use the restroom, you can. But what you don't want to do is you people that know each other, you don't want to leave for a half an hour. No, because I got some more stuff I want to share with you. But let's take 5 minutes. But you have to stand up. Don't sit there. Stand up. But let's come back in 5 minutes. Good? Yes?
Good, yeah.
Okay, good. Yes, sir. Here, I'll even turn this off.
My pops died.
All right. Look. That was 5 minutes. How we doing? How we doing? Yes. Yeah.
Can everybody please take your seat? We're trying to get everybody together. Yes, please, everybody consolidate. If we can have people sitting.
Guys, try to sit together. I just want to just do this. I'm not the social media expert, but I do know a few things. If we can pull together, it'll make better social media shots. So don't be a wallflower. Pull it in. Don't be afraid to sit up in the front. Steve's not going to pick on you. He's a nice guy. So,
I am going to pick on them, and I'm a nice guy. Of course I'll pick on them.
so let's kind of try to sit together. You know what I mean? A little bit. Nothing worse in social media than empty chairs.
Yeah. Come on.
I know all the little tricks.
Yeah. That's much better. Much better. I know, I kept looking at the void. This void. Like, there's something about this line of chairs right here. Nobody.
It was bugging me too, brother. I couldn't do anything.
You did it.
This is what I'm talking about.
Now we're getting somewhere. Now when they take pictures, they can say, the thousands of people at PRMG.
I can do a little step and repeat, you know? And they go, is that the same? Did I just see that one in the same shape?
Those guys aren't budging. It doesn't matter.
Because that's the nobody cares, nobody listens guy in the back. And his cohort.
I promise you, if you asked a question, I would both care and listen. Just to make sure that you got a different perspective on things. Okay, yeah, so, you took a break. We had some things before. Again, I've only got a couple more things to share. Other thoughts, ideas, questions you all want to bring to the table?
Just keep it coming. I got 6 pages of notes.
Just from the no one cares, no one listens, dude. I love that. He's both caring and listening. Not consistent.
I love it.
That's awesome. Okay. What else? What are you thinking? What questions? Yeah.
What's the impact of the food that you eat have on everything that goes on in your brain?
Oh my God.
So that was what impact does what you eat have on the impact of your brain and everything we're discussing?
Yeah. So a lot. How about that? Let's move on. A lot. But we intuit that, right? You could take a whole class on it. Sugars and carbohydrates and stuff, we become addicted to these things and they have a huge impact on us. What's the impact in the world that I work in is, so the human brain, or you should say the human body, this is just fun stuff that I research, has 100 billion neurons in our body. There are 100 billion nerve cells. These are nerve cells. 100 billion, think about that, okay? Off these nerve cells, there's these little things, and many of you have heard of this stuff, there's little things called synapses. Synapses are how the nerve cells talk to one another, okay? So any guesses how many synapses there are per nerve cell? So if there's 100 billion, they're a lot smaller than that. It's crazy microscopic stuff, but there are synapses. Any guesses on how many synapses per nerve cell?
I have a guess.
Guess.
I thought it was 100 million synapse per,
No, it's about 10,000.
is it? Okay,
About 10,000, but 10,000 synapses per 100 billion nerve cells.
got you.
Okay? So when, I'm the freak that will go and do that math. You could too. Multiply 10,000 times 100 billion, you'll get 10 to the 15th power. That's 1 followed by 15 zeros, which we don't have a word for. Or you could say 1,000 trillion. I guess that'd be a word for it. But that's not the mind-blowing part. That's because that's just the number. The mind-blowing part is now think of the sequential possibilities. Okay? So if you play the lottery, right, which I don't because I think it's a tax on people that are bad at math. But if you play the lottery, when they used to spin the balls around in the thing and the power ball, y'all remember this? You remember how many balls were actually in the thing that they're spinning? Does anyone know? I should research that because I've sometimes referenced. Let's just say it's 100. I think it might have even been less, but let's just say it's 100. So if you could sequence 5 balls out of 100 and then guess the Powerball, the 6th one, $1.5 billion. That's sequencing 6 numbers from only 100. Now I want you to imagine 10 to the 15th power and think of the sequential possibilities. There was one neuroscientist guy that said he believed there's more sequential possibilities in the human brain than there are atoms in the universe. A lot of those, the vast majority of our nerve cells are encased in our skull. About between 12 and 15% of all those neurons, ready, are in our gut. The gut is actually sometimes referred to as the second brain. So when you ask what we eat and how we eat it, yeah. It's massive to even neuroscience and how the neuroscience shows up. So, no, again, I could stay here all day and go, yeah. So here, you want a little trick? Stop eating processed foods. Eat as many fruits and vegetables as you can. Make 75% of your diet fruits and vegetables, maybe some protein and meat, and a little bit carbohydrates, the end. We have this consumption society that wants to sell books and diets. That gets pretty simple, right? Donuts are not usually pretty good for you. Sorry, there was a couple good ones out there, I'm sure. Okay, what else? Yes, sir.
So earlier we talked about stress being bad for you.
Yes. Mike, earlier I talked about stress being bad for us, yes.
So earlier you mentioned about stress being bad for you. So I guess there's some opinions out there that say that some stress is good for you. And I want to know what your take is on that.
Yeah, they're right. There is some stress. In fact, there's 2 kinds of stress that are categorized in neuroscience. One is called distress, you've heard of, and the other is called eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, eustress. Eustress is the kind of stress that you feel at the beginning of a race. It's preparing you. It's not as cortisol inducing, and it doesn't last as long, and it can get you off the dime and go. So we use eustress to actually get motivated and do stuff. And so that's what they're referring to. And so yes, eustress is not technically bad for you, but we also don't carry it. And stress as a concept, my research on it isn't the good, the bad, it's how long does cortisol stay present in the body, right? Again, if you, when you look at the design of the neurochemical cortisol, AKA the stress hormone, we look at the design, it has a half-life, so to speak, meaning it's supposed to turn on and turn off. And the design, we know this, is supposed to, again, get you out of being hit by a car, right? If a bear came out of the mountains and walked into the room, we all better damn well have cortisol. We need it to get out. Some people think they need it to get going in business. They think they need it to get going to the gym, and they think they can use stress for long-term activities. But what happens is that stress, again, impacts the brain in a way where it's actually impeding the prefrontal cortex, which totally makes sense, right? If the bear walks in here, you don't want a prefrontal cortex. We don't want to sit around and go, what do you think we should do? And let's reason about it. No, by design, it's inhibited to you just get out and go take action. So the brain actually gets inhibited for that, which is my big problem with accountability, is we actually increase that, inhibit the part of the brain, and then go tell people to take action. Get it? Like, that's dumb. As opposed to, let's talk together of what it would be like if we did this, and you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the brain that like frees your mind. By the way, when you get into a flow state, back to baseball and all that stuff, when you felt that in normal life, you ever just had a day you're like, man, I'm nailing it. So good stuff happens. You just feel good. You're more creative. You're more thoughtful. Generative thinking. Look at mortgage banking for the last 3 years, right? You cannot have, I get it, a 500 basis point increase within a 1 month period and live to tell about it. We got crushed. I get it. And still we could choose. And it's still going on out there. People are still like worried about this. And is this going to come back? And worried about this. And I'm like, what if a group of people could go, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop and think about how I worry and learn to relate to stressful situations differently. That is very surgical language. Because I don't go out telling people, oh, don't stress about that. I mean, think about that. Have you ever walked up to someone who's really stressed about something and said, don't worry about that? In the history of ever, has that person ever looked and said, you know what, thank you. Thank you. I was going to continue to stay stressed until you made that comment. Now I'll stop stressing out and worrying about something. It's never happened. It's incompassionate. So we don't tell people, we're not going to stress anymore. We tell people we're going to learn to relate to stress differently. Because you know what? We can't stop the stress. I do understand the mortgage business. I do understand what happens at the end of the month. I do understand underwriting guidelines and technology. We're not going to stop the situations. What we can start is to relate to those situations differently. We can stop projecting negative consequences forward. And this is why I didn't want to contradict Kevin or any of you guys that stand up here. But like, this is coming and that's coming and that's coming. We live in a world that's so future-oriented. And did you know, and I talked to somebody at the break about this, almost every major traditional religion and philosophy in the world in some form or fashion teaches learning how to be present. It teaches how to be present. But then we come to something like this. The future's this. AI, it's like future, cortisol. Right? Like, no. That doesn't mean we ignore it. It's just that I think so many people are so trapped in the future, cortisol so high, and then we're not having the prefrontal cortex that we need. What you all should be doing is sitting around having a what if we session. What if we did this? What if we did that? I'm telling you, take a whole bunch of stressed out people and bring them together for a creative session and let me know how that goes. It's very difficult to be creative while the brain is dedicating that much energy to negativity. We can't be creative. And so that's what I've seen the last 3 years. I wish I could have come here every day and been like, you really want to kill it through this? No, you're not going to change interest rates. Nothing that I say today is going to have any impact on inventory or housing or prices. Nothing. It's only going to have an impact on you. And should you choose to... Now, again, am I the guy going, you're going to see it differently? No, but you could change the way you show up. And that in turn could change the way next thing you know, we have people going, wow, I'm being more proactive with my clients. I'm reaching out to more people. I'm using these technologies and I'm making more meetings. I'm better at knowing, like, just like me wondering if you guys are going to like me. Do you know how much call reluctance exists in mortgage banking? You have any idea? I mean, I know it's none of you, but do you know how much call reluctance exists? You know how many people don't make calls all because of a future projection of a negative outcome? We just don't have the products. We're not as big. Ishbia and all those guys are a lot bigger and they've got more money. Screw that. It doesn't matter. Most people will still do business with people they like, period. I love when people go like, oh, this isn't a popularity contest. Yes, it absolutely is. Go be likable. And then ask yourself this question, are you more likable with a ton of cortisol or less? Right? I'm not saying some of you aren't likable leaving characters with cortisol. You're more likable without it. And I'm telling you, likability will have a greater impact on your future than all of AI will. This company can bring you all the tech in the frickin' world, and still it won't have near the impact as your ability to go out and just be with people. And by the way, AI is never going to touch that anyway. You want job security? Get your cortisol down. Let's start projecting forward. Let's wake up. Let's be creative. Let's be generative. That's job security. You will kill it in this business. And by the way, I know what you all do for a living. Take this work and go give it away. How many brokers need to hear this? How many owners of companies? How many originators? There's nothing that says you couldn't go. I mean, you can learn this stuff. Metacognition is not that hard to teach. What if more people, I know I sound like John Lennon. Imagine a world where people are practicing metacognition. Wow.
It's easy if you try.
Yeah. He'll be here all week. Tip your waitress. Try the veal. It's easy. Dude, that was good. Okay, what else? I got one more. We're going to go past
Steve,
Yeah.
I have a question
Yes,
or
sir.
a comment to make. So I love where you were going earlier. What did you call that?
The parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay, so what that made me think of was sometimes when you're driving in the car, you're taking a shower. Mammalian brain versus reptilian, I've heard that term used, and you'll probably correct me on that. One takes over the other and allows the other one to flow. You were kind of saying that. I kind of been reading on this. This is very interesting to me. How do you get the brain to rewire? How do you rewire the synapse? Is it through actions and behaviors? How do you do that? Especially right now when we're living in this abundant mindset, hyperbolic environment, more is more. What about, is there some room for less is more?
Well, all I can say is you and Michelle need to go bowling because you basically asked me the same question.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Right?
cool.
I mean, he's kind of asking the same thing, right?
Because I was here for the second half, I suppose.
Yeah.
Brother.
Michelle asked me the same thing. You know, look, you guys, I own a company called Rewire, right? How do you rewire? Like, I know some people want, what's the one easy way to do this? What's the one thing? How do we do this? I'm sorry to tell you, there isn't one thing. There isn't. I wrote an article, what was that, a couple years ago, called 3 Easy Ways to Create 5 Simple Steps. Right? Because I figured out the recipe. That's what the world wants. Right? I don't think metacognition and practicing this process of being able to see yourself think, watching yourself feel, and the willingness to examine your own thinking. If you just did that, if you were walking out and you felt something, I feel happy, I feel sad, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, this. And if you could get better, go, whoa, Paul, look at that, look at me think that. That's really interesting. Let me ask me some questions about that. Just that practice alone. I'm asking you to cure it, stop it. I'm asking you to notice it. If you could get better at growing the noticer in you. And in case you ever want to practice this, I can give you the best place to practice this, behind the wheel of a car. If you can't figure out where to practice metacognition, go for a drive. Most people drive around thinking they're the only people that know how to do this activity. And we get so angry and frustrated and mad, and you'll notice you'll make things and comments and whatever. And if you also want to practice metacognition, get around your children. Nothing will screw with your emotional intelligence like your kids. Nothing. And so when they say things and do things, notice your responses. Okay? The next time you go, I got to do this discipline, if you can catch yourself saying, I know I should do something and you're not doing it, practice metacognition. Someone recently told me that they just are procrastinators. They procrastinate. And I had to point out the fact that procrastination is steeped in fear. Fear. When we procrastinate, when we take something that we know we should do and don't do it, it's because we're not willing to give up the thing that we are doing. Okay? Hey, I need to get on an exercise plan. Great. And you get really excited about that. Has anyone ever been to a gym on January 2nd? It's right. January 3rd, crickets. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the couch feels better. It's just that simple. That's what emotional intelligence is all about. If we could practice metacognition, we could begin to see some things and know ourselves. That's right. That's the oracle at Delphi. Know thyself. I heard you say, like, the only person you don't know is you. Like, you were kind of teasing about that, and I was like, well, I could work with him. I could help him get to know himself a little bit. But yeah, do you know, like, all this stuff about worry and stress and anxiety? You know, a lot of people don't know themselves. We're so worried, and we're not even thoughtful about the fact that that's a future projection of a negative outcome. But we can get better. And that's why practicing metacognition, I'm telling you, this is every bit a powerful tool as any technology you're going to bring to this company.
Is there, not to take another author's tagline, but it's the let them theory. This is a whole bunch of...
The what? I'm sorry?
The let them theory?
Yeah, is that Brene Brown?
No, that's Mel.
Oh, Mel Robbins.
Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
So question was, is it? I mean, a lot of stopping, like finding a way, right? Finding a way. How do we begin to start the process? Is stopping for a second, like when you were going to go catch the guy.
Yeah.
You were angry. You were going to catch him and
Yeah.
give him a dirty look, or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you said. You stopped yourself, right? So it's
Yeah.
the whole let them. What were you going to gain?
Yes, because I think Mel Robbins is really cool. Yes, as long as it doesn't turn in, I'm just careful of things that don't turn into positive metacognition. What I wanted to do is grow in my awareness of me. Letting them took the focus off growing about how I'm actually thinking. And so I'm not saying it's raw. That's not my job to do. I'm just saying when you're practicing, here, you guys want I'll give you a thing because you guys are all looking for one thing. Here's one thing. Grow in curiosity. Grow in curiosity. Now, you can be curious about other people, right? What about curious about yourself? Wow, why is that? Look at me. I notice that I'm worried. I'm curious about that. Most people, if they even notice they're worried, which they don't, they just are worried, right? We teach a whole process through our coaching process called diffusion. Anytime you hear yourself, I'm giving you diffusion now, I'm going too far, but anytime we literally use the verb to be. I'm worried. I am. We're literally fusing together our identity with an emotion. Okay, I had a client the other day, some CEO that I'm coaching, and he was like, I'm sick and tired. He said, I'm sick and tired of this stuff. And I paused. I was like, I'm sick and tired. When you practice diffusion, you move from I'm sick and tired to I feel sick and tired. That, believe it or not, that little movement from I am this to I feel this begins to separate the emotion from the thing. And then if we can move that to I notice I feel sick and tired. I notice that, again, I'm helping that person grow their noticer. I'm seeing me. Because if you can get to I notice I feel sick and tired, someone asked me recently, God, it sounds like a lot of mental energy. Why would you do that? What's the big why? Why teach you guys this? And I had to think about it. Yeah, is it because I think it's cool? No. And I came to this conclusion. You ready? Freedom. Freedom of choice. You see, if you don't practice this and you just are sick and tired, I am anxious, I'm worried, I'm afraid. If you just are that, believe it or not, you have very few choices. Your life is getting chosen for you. And that's why anytime I hear someone say, oh, she stressed me out, it stressed me out. Oh, did it? And did she? And when we do that, we're giving the world, we abdicate to the world a choice. No wonder we're walking around stressed and when you ask people, because he said that, and the loan didn't close, and this, and we give all these external things for a choice of ours. You wake up one day, maybe you'll leave here and go, I'm going to exercise that choice better than I ever have. I'm not going to stop the situations. The guy is an asshole. The loan didn't close. The mortgage industry is what it is. Technology is what it is, and I get to choose how I respond. You walk with that because you can practice metacognition, it's a game changer. But if I come back here next year, and because maybe you came in here and you were riddled with cortisol, and you don't remember any of this, and I ask again, and like, oh, remember he said that one thing, like, I'm telling you, that's why this work sometimes, I get hired to be a speaker. I know how to fire people up, but I'm not into temporary feeling good. I don't care if you leave here and feel good. I would care if you left here and a month from now are still thinking about this. Put something into practice. When people come to me, oh, I love your work. Like, oh, maybe you didn't understand it. I don't care if you love my work. What I care about is, would it change you? Can you practice metacognition? Because when we do that, maybe that's what I get the most excited about. I got into coaching because I actually wanted to see what it took for human beings to actually go through sustainable, authentic change. And it's not an accountability, and it's not telling people what to do, and it's not fake motivation, but it could be. That's why I got so into the brain. So I got 10 minutes. Can I give you one more quick little nugget? Because, I got to give you more stuff. You got to fill up some more pages. This one, if we go over 3 minutes, would that be horrible? If I went over 3 minutes? Okay. Because I don't know how to do this fast. The other thing I came to share with you guys is I want you to know that you are telling yourself a story. And if you could recognize that you're telling yourself a story, you can rewrite the story. This is what Dr. Daniel Siegel, who, by the way, runs the Mindsight Institute here in LA, and he was the head of neurobiology at UCLA. He wrote a book called Mindsight, and in Mindsight, I'll give you another reference. David Rock, who was a South African neuroscientist, did this cool longitudinal study, and he basically studied what he called he called them, if you think of a computer, remember we used to, like these motherboards. You have two motherboards in your brain. One he called narrative circuitry, and the other he called direct experience. Narrative circuitry, direct experience. Direct experience, by the way, is what's happening. I'm here, it's Thursday, right? It's Thursday, we're in Southern California, we're in Corona. This is happening, it's present, direct experience. You could leave here and an hour from now, someone could go like, hey, how was that guy? Oh, I liked him, I didn't like him, he was this, he was that, he was that. You'll start telling your stories about what happened. And so we all have narratives. Dr. David Rock concluded that, get this, 90% of most people's life is lived in narrative circuitry. Only 10% of your life is direct experience. 90% of your entire life is not what's actually happening, it's what you tell yourself is happening. If you could click into that, do you get how it can change? If that's true, then we're all making stuff up about it. And as long as you're making shit up, make up good shit. Narrative circuitry. I don't have a long time. I will, again, stories help. I told you probably too much about my family. I'm the 6th of 7 kids. Grew up in an alcoholic household. I'm the 6th of 7 kids. I got 5 older brothers, sisters, and 1 younger sister. When you have 7 kids in a family and you're growing up, you can imagine that there could have been cliques and some of the kids that liked each other, not like that's just families, right? You ever heard the definition of a dysfunctional family is any family with more than one. Okay, so we were growing up, and my older brother, Pat, who's 4 years older than I am, and I never got along, ever. Like, I didn't like him, he didn't like me, there was always this thing. And it carried into our adulthood and whatever. Pat actually lives in Viterbo, Italy, which is north of Rome. He's lived there for 30 years with his wife and family and kids and stuff. And about 5 years ago, Pat was coming through the United States, and he actually called my wife and said he'd like to come to visit us. I was like, Pat? Huh. My brother Pat wants to come and visit. One morning, after I had heard this, I was standing in the shower, and I'm just going to tell you, by the way, when you stand in the shower and you have let water hit the back of your neck, that you release serotonin. Serotonin gets released with rhythmic water and warmth, so take a lot of showers, you'll release a lot of serotonin. I'm sitting in the shower, and I'm thinking about this, and I start to go like this. I'm just going to tell you what I said, and it's okay, because Kevin started swearing, so I can do it too. I started to say this, Pat's a dick. Remember that time, and I started to narrative about Pat. And the thing, remember when we were little, he did this, and within 10, 15 minutes, have you ever told yourself so many stories? Like, I was telling them so well to myself, I felt like people were clapping, and yeah! And I had proved it to myself through this narrative circuitry. And then, metacognition, I was like, whoa, Steve, what a narrative. And I paused. And I was like, the truth is, I don't even really know Pat that well. And I wonder what kind of dad he is. And I wonder what he likes, when he doesn't lie. I don't really know him that well. And I get out of the shower and I tell my wife this, and she about breaks into tears. She's like, I've been waiting 25 years for you to tell yourself a different story about your brother. And Pat came to visit us. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And he's a good guy. And I'd have never known the narrative circuitry. You want to leave here and narrate whatever you want to about this business? Oh, rates are this and this and that. Catch your narratives and come back to direct experience. You lead a very blessed life. You're supported by an incredible company. And yet we dedicate so much energy to narratives that don't serve us. And if we could only catch that, and catching a narrative, I'd love to tell you, it's great. It's not. It's jarring. Believe it or not, it feels actually consistent with my past to believe my brother's like that. It felt consistent, rude. It's consistent to continue to think that guy's a jerk driving. And when you change the narrative, I'm not going to go like, this is great. At first, it'll feel like, But if you can explore those narratives, do you realize how those narratives actually shape what you do for a living? When Kevin steps up here and goes, we're going to do this and we're going to bring out this new technology, did you feel yourself going, new technology? Oh my gosh. What if you could catch that narrative? And what if your narrative was, it's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out too. Might not be the easiest thing, but it's going to be okay. And if we could do that and actually shape and catch our narratives, and this is why Kevin's such an idiot. No, I'm just kidding.
I was listening.
Yeah.
Was your point that after you thought about it, Pat wasn't such a bad guy and he didn't really do those things to you, or was it just forget about that and let's start over?
It wasn't forget about it. It was just understand it, and that I was narrating from the past, and all of those past things probably wasn't even representative of who he was today. But I was so caught in that narrative and so trying to prove myself right. And I was right. By the way, most people, even hearing about this, I'm very reticent to share this with you, and we got to go in 3 minutes. To leave you guys with, hey, good luck with your narratives, is like, because most people don't even know the difference. Most people don't know there are narratives. For them, all of life is direct experience. Why are you stressed out? That person said that, this person said that. Maybe you'll leave here going, oh, whoa. Maybe when they're trying to roll out this new technology and I frame it like this and think about it like that, that's just my framing and thinking. As long as you're doing that, you want the ultimate act of freedom, know that you have narratives. And by the way, not all narratives are bad. We need narrative circuitry. If you didn't have narratives and you went to college and said, what was college like? It would take you exactly 4 years to tell me that story. We synthesize with narrative. But there's a lot of narratives in this space that are just negative. And when we don't see them in narratives, we go around convincing other people of the truth. Right? And this is what Dr. Daniel Kahneman, Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and his work in social economics, there's a lot of books written. Very few people win Nobel Peace Prizes for it. Dr. Kahneman won a Nobel Peace Prize for these human biases. He's probably the foremost authority on human biases. One of them is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is you'll tell your story and do everything you can to convince people to believe your narrative. Right? And you'll do it to yourself. I'm standing in the chair, Pat's like I thought of this, and I remember thinking like, yeah, you're right. Have you ever done that? Yeah, you're right. You're so right. And like, oh wow. And that's confirmation bias. So I'm not here to say you're wrong. I'm here to say, what if we could practice more direct experience? When someone rolls out a new technology and everyone's up in arms because something changed. We represented, this was a few years ago now, we represented a software there was a loan origination software, and again, this was years ago, but at one point, whatever coders had to do, whatever they had to do, they had moved something on the 1003 from this side of the screen to this side of the screen. Like, it might have been the drop down for income. I don't know what it was. It was just something small. You'd have thought that when they deployed that in the environment, like two people like, I'm gonna quit. I hate this thing. That's how little the brain needs to change for you to tell yourself a crazy narrative. And I always have to remind people, you know, not in the history of any company ever that rolls out new technology did any board come together and go, you know what, let's screw with them and give them something worse. And yet, how often is that the narrative? I like the old way. I know. But if we're going to get trapped in that narrative, and again, not to scare you and freak you out about the future, because that's cortisol inducing, ready? If you're going to get freaked out about the changes, what if your narrative was changes? Bring them on. Bring them. Let me adopt them. You're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. When we went through TRID and Dodd-Frank and all that stuff, it's been ever. How many times have you read about the fact that TPO is going to be dead because brokers are going to die? It's 2026, and I started hearing that in 1997. They're going to be over. Y'all are still here and killing it. They're not. They're not. It's just that every time we go through something, this is the greatest change, it's just changes. The human brain does change very poorly, but it's mostly narrative. It's mostly narrative. And as long as you're making shit up, make up good shit. I can't tell you that it's always going to be, going to be money and whatever. I can tell you this, when we have the capacity to do that, we set ourselves better in the present. And if we're better in the present, our brains work better. And when our brains work better, again, are we Derek Jeter? Are you going to see a 90-mile-an-hour fast pitch? No, but you can get into flow more often. And I'd bank, bless you, I'd bank on any company that could get the largest group of people in flow. More creative, less judgmental, more accepting, more do that. You guys do that, I'm telling you, I think you could kill it. And here's the greatest part of it. It's completely within your control. It's a function of practice. I gave you everything I have. Take it. Use it. When I created my own company, I wrote into the bylaws that I would never have intellectual property. Because I figured if I'm trying to help the world and if you can go out and figure out how to do better and I can't, I want to swipe and adapt my stuff, God bless you. Go. But go change the world. Because we can. All right, you guys, thanks. I'm done. Sweating.
If I ask you a couple follow-ups
Yeah.
after you just drop the mic? I think I know the answer to this question. We have a sales leader that always says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same thing as like, I got to go to the gym? Or is
Well,
that...
first of all, if someone says, I'm sick and tired, I'm paying attention, metacognition, I'm paying attention to the use of the verb to be. If you can catch yourself using to be to describe your emotions, I'm this. I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm sick and tired. And so what was the second one?
Of being sick and tired.
No, but you said, is that the same of I got
to go to the gym, I got to...
Yeah, so anytime you're using that language, I got to do this, I got to do this, just hear the threat. I got to, or else. And you would think, shouldn't that motivate me? Well, let me ask, how's that working? Because if we keep gottoing, it's apparently not working. Now, if Daniel Pink talks about this, and he says, if it's a heuristic activity, if I said, you got to get up and go touch that wall and sit down and I'll give you $100, would you all do that? Well, then it works. For short-term activities. You can threaten yourself and you can do it for short-term. But when you come to sales rallies and you're trying to grow a company, you're trying to grow a business, I hope many of you don't want to do more loans. I hope you want to have a better career. If all you're trying to do is one more loan, yeah, threaten yourself. If you're trying to sit here and go, how can I have a better career? Threat doesn't work anymore. So all the gottas in the world, so moving from got to get to, there's a certain level of freedom in that and catching yourself doing it. But if you catch yourself doing got to, and then you go, don't do that, do you get the trick? Because then you're stiff-arming that. Catch yourself in stress or got to, and then get curious. Wow, that's so interesting. Look at me do that. Explore it, understand it. Don't try to eradicate it or you'll hit the ball in the lake.
Great answer. Do you, any takeaways? You recently, I listened to your podcast with your hero.
Oh, God.
Any takeaways?
Yeah, my big takeaway I got to interview Dr. Richard Boyatzis, and Boyatzis, it's so funny to drop that name because nobody knows his name anyway. But for me, this guy started studying coaching in 1969, which was about 25 years before it was ever even a thing in business. And he's written more papers, and he's a professor at Case Western University. And I actually reached out on just a whim and was like, would you let me interview you? And he said yes, and I got to interview him. And he was brilliant. He was gracious. What I took away mostly from that was his comment about coaching works best because of resonance, that we resonate with people. Not all because people want to know what's the ROI and how much money are you spending and what do you get. When you have someone in your life that's willing to really listen and understand that level of resonance, people connect with that. And you start getting into, you can even go so far with that and get into the whole field of quantum mechanics. And anyone know anything about quantum theory? Like, it gets really wild, and I'm not going to go into all that. But just know this, we're more connected than you can possibly imagine, even at a physical level. So the listening and vibrations, and when we vibrate with people, to me that was really relevant, even for the work that you do. If you think you're going out there and going, we got this program and that product, and you're giving all this technical stuff, by all means do that. You know what you're really doing? Resonating with people. If they walk away and there's a resonance, that's powerful. So learning what actually causes that resonance, which by the way releases oxytocin, that resonance, we can do that with people through query, questioning. Just go be really, really curious. Stop trying to be the most like the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting guy in the world. Don't be the most interesting person in the world. Be the most interested. Don't be the most interesting. Be the most interested. Tell me about that. Tell me about that. Tell me more. If you get really interested in people, I know you guys have you have a relationship with someone like some broker where you go in there and you're just shooting the breeze about all kinds of stuff and the loan business is secondary? I got to tell you, that's nirvana. When we're trying to compete at this technical level.
That's called Germano. Where there he is. That is Germano. You just totally summed up.
Yeah.
Bobby.
Right. Go be about, yes, we got to know the business, but all the stuff you're talking about, that thing just gets you on the playing field. Get on the playing field, great. And they're giving you playing field stuff. You got every bit you need from this company. Now go resonate with people. Because if you take both those things, we'll be talking about $1.3 billion. We'll talk about $10 billion. What are you guys doing? Come on.
Amen.
And if you do that, I want to cut.
Deal. Thank you, brother. Come here.
See you.
Love you, buddy. Good morning.
You sticking around?
Yeah.
All right. We got lunch.
Thank you.